Hello, welcome to my season review and 2023 plans. Now, I'm going to try and make this as interesting as possible, but without any onboards, fundamentally. We're talking for the next 10 minutes or so. So without further ado, cue the music. So, round one took place at Silverstone National back in March, which feels like a lifetime ago, and there's a lot happened between now and then. As I say, it was on the national circuit. I had been to that track before, albeit on the GP layout, which, I did mention this in the vlog at the time. Not my most favourite track in the world. I mean, I enjoy riding every circuit, but with it being so flat and the track so wide, it's not as exciting as some of the others. Nonetheless, it wasn't a bad start. I qualified 7th. Race 1, finished that 7th. Race 2, I was 6th. And then race 3, I was 7th. The last race had a red flag after a crash on the first corner. And to be honest, that always kind of disrupts my rhythm. My head goes a little bit as well, and I just struggle to get back into it. So maybe I would have done better than 7th in that last race, but that's by the by. It wasn't a bad start to the championship, really. No crashes or anything like that. And I was looking forward to get to round 2 at Snetterton. Round 2, Snetterton. Now, this was the beginning of April. I had my very first race there, on a big bike anyway, at least, in the Newcomer 600 back in August 2020. Now, the test day didn't go too bad, apart from the fact that it was freezing cold, and apparently there'd been cars there the day before, and they dropped oil everywhere, so it really was like riding on an ice rink, which is quite fitting since it's like an ice rink outside right now. Qualifying, it didn't sort of go too well. I didn't feel confident on the bike. I didn't, feel like I could push because, I felt like I was on eggshells, if you like. Qualified 6th. Race 1, fairly uneventful, ended up with a 6th place. Determined to go better. The temperature was improving on Sunday morning. I went out for the morning warm-up, accelerating out of the hairpin on my first lap. Strange noises coming from the engine, so I nursed it back round without raising the revs too high. Turns out it was a valve failure, or piston to valve contact, which destroyed the engine basically. So that meant I didn't manage to start race 2 or race 3. Quite disappointing, and also under, quite tight time constraints, given I was making my British Supersport debut in just a couple of days back at Silverstone National. Now, it was time for my British Supersport debut, which was back at Silverstone National. So obviously, one of the reasons why I picked this to make my debut, not only was it the first round of the year for the British Superbike Championship, but also I'd only been there a couple of weeks previous, so hopefully that'd stand me in good stead. And we were blessed with some fairly good weather again, however it was quite windy. What I really did enjoy about the BSB experience was the longer practice sessions, which make it, you can go out, ride round, come in, make a change, go back out, and you can feel that change instantly rather than usually having to wait an hour between, as I would at a no limits round. And I did manage to qualify 21st in class, which wasn't amazing, but I was pleased with the time. It was better than I'd done at no limits. Then in race 1, I managed to finish 14th, so got 2 British Supersport points, which, got to be pleased with. My aims were not to be last, and then to score points. I managed to achieve both of them, which I was very pleased with. However, there was some small bike troubles, and I knew that I could go faster in the second race. And I did. The first race, I made a much better start, elbows out a little bit more. I think I came round in about 9th place in class, and I ended up finishing 12th in class. So all in all, a fantastic experience. Maybe I would do some more later in the season. Well, you've just got to fit these vlogs in whenever you can do them. So, round 3, Donington National, first weekend of May. A little bit cold on the mornings, but warming up during the, throughout the day. Now, It's always been a track where comparatively I'm being a bit slower than I should be when you know compare me versus everyone else, especially when you compare how I go around the GP circuit. But I do favour going left then right rather than right then left through the chicane. Not sure why, but I do. Test day, now to write home about really. Qualifying, I finished 7th. Race 1, 9th, so you know, not fantastic really. I'd been, you know, doing better than that in previous rounds. Then race 2, finished 7th. As I say, it was getting warmer. I was feeling, you know, a little bit more comfortable on the bike. Then race 3 went out, and I'm pretty sure it was the first lap going down the back straight. I was up a couple of positions as well, I think, after a good start off the line. Nonetheless, more exhaust valve failure. Second time in 4 rounds, so quite disappointed with that, but hopefully it'll be the last. Round 4 was at Croft in June, which is my local round, and I say I always enjoy going there. It was actually only my 3rd time racing there, or 2nd time with no limits, but I enjoy it nonetheless, despite the fact I don't get to practice there that often. And the year before I'd done a 1 minute 25.4 something. Qualifying got underway quite well, despite the fact that my rear brake had somehow welded itself on, and I thought the engine had damaged itself, to be honest, but managed to qualify in 6th place. Race 1 there was a huge crash on the opening lap, and luckily no one was, you know, seriously injured, although some people didn't take part in the weekend. The crash involved like 5 bikes maybe, but you can see all that on my Croft vlog. Anyway, in the rerun I managed to finish 5th, which wasn't a bad result really, you know, sort of upward trend if you like. Race 2, 5th, and then race 4 managed to put a move on Oliver with probably 3 laps to go to get a 4th place, which I was absolutely buzzing with. More importantly, I was getting close to that podium, so maybe things had improved when we got to Anglesey. Round 5 took us to sunny Anglesey in North Wales. Tom Booth Amos was making a wildcard appearance, who's normally a runner in World Supersport. Thankfully, he wasn't eligible for points, and qualifying got underway really well with a 4th place. Race 1, I knuckled down and managed to come home with a 3rd. Race 2, a 3rd. And then race 3, even better, I managed to get a 2nd place. And even better than that, I got some prize money! Woo! So, after racing at Anglesey for round 5, we were now at Brands Hatch. On the Indy circuit on the Saturday, Friday practice and Saturday for qualifying and race 1. I'd never actually been around the Indy circuit before, but turns out I loved it. I mean, I was obviously carrying a lot of confidence, having had 3 podiums in a row at Anglesey, managing, you know, to break through into the podium, which confidence-wise does a lot. Qualifying got underway really well, and I was on pole position, believe it or not, by over half a second. I came in the pits feeling really confident, and I thought, oh my god, I can go faster here. So I thought, well, let's go out and, you know, see how much I can improve my lap time by. First flying lap, Paddock Hill Bend took the front like an idiot. But I was still, you know, despite finishing the session in the gravel, I was still in pole position. So quickly got the bike turned around for the start of race 1. Now, myself and Finley had a good race here. A little bit of a battle, but it's really difficult to put an overtake on him. I did get the overtake, but he came straight back underneath me after I ran wide on the exit at Paddock Hill Bend. What I didn't realise is there was bikes queuing up behind us, at least initially, and we were really close together. And then come the end of the race, 3 of us went over the line pretty much in a, you know, nose to tail train. Then for Sunday, we had to race on the Grand Prix circuit. Little bit of dodgy weather on the morning. Right, Vinny? Little bit of dodgy weather on the morning, which meant that didn't really get the best of laps in. I think I qualified 5th or 6th on the GP circuit. Again, the race 1 of the Sunday, or race 2, little bit dodgy weather conditions. That definitely played a part, and I came back with the 5th place, but it was only half points because we only ran a half distance. In the final race, I sort of managed to get my act together. Initially not so good, but made progress all through the race. Closing Finley down, I overtook him with a lap to go. but he sort of repaid the favour on the last lap. And, you know, we had a bit of a run to the line, but he beat me, so 4th place. Now, can't complain, you know, I've gone from being sort of 5th, 6th to, you know, qualifying on pole, getting 3 podiums in a row. So yeah, and the next time I'd be out was at Cadwell Park for my 2nd British Supersport appearance, so I couldn't wait for it. Oh, hello. I wasn't expecting company today. Well, since you're here, I think I'll tell you all about what happened at Cadwell Park this year. So the first time we raced there this year was for the BSB, or British Supersport. My 2nd go at British Supersport, and I was looking forward to, you know, pick up where we left off from Silverstone early in the year, where I got my best finish of a 12th place. Qualifying, it went okay. 17th in class, which is a Supersport class. I struggled to find my rhythm really, pretty much just matched the best times that I'd ever managed round there, in the 1 minute 33s. Race 1 didn't go too bad, came away with a 15th, but I was really struggling. Physically, I found it really tough. Although I was determined, you know, to do better in the next race, and I realised that I'd actually had my steering damper wound on full all weekend, which had been hampering me. Anyway, the first time to try out this change at speed was in race 2, because morning warm-up was kind of rained off. And being a proper first lap hero, I crashed. So that was the end of that, and probably that's the end of my BSB career, if you like. But I enjoyed it, you know, no qualms. And in the 75% of the time I scored points, which, you know, I've got to be pretty pleased with that. Moving on to No Limits, which was just 3 days later. Obviously feeling very confident, having only just been riding around there, you know, with, well, the best riders in the country on the 600. Managed to qualify 4th. Again, similar times to what I'd managed at BSB. And then race 1, 4th. Can't quite remember what happened in these races. Race 2 was also 4th, but in this race I was closing down on the guy in 3rd place. I managed to do a 1 minute 32.3, which I was absolutely buzzing with, because if you've ever ridden at Cadwell Park, you'll know 1 minute 30, low 1 minute 32 on a 600 is pretty rapid. Not as fast as Jack Kennedy, I'll admit, but, you know, it's pretty fast. And then race 3, I managed to come on with 3rd, which, again, a really good result being on the podium. However, I did lead the race for 4 or 5 laps before making a mistake and my head falling off, and then, you know, worrying about the people behind me rather than the people in front. However, it was all set up for a good final round. I was within striking distance of 3rd in the championship, and I'd proved I could lead races. I'll just finish adjusting my brakes here. Got to make sure these brakes are well adjusted. The final round of the year was at Donington Park on the GP circuit. The layout, which I do favour more than the national circuit, as I've already alluded to, mainly because of the direction of the chicane. Anyway, the test day got underway really badly. My engine expired for the 3rd time in, you know, this year, which was not great. Thankfully, I do carry a spare engine, albeit just a, you know, totally standard road bike engine, which I didn't actually have any mapping for. So, you know, I was going to be on the back foot straight away. Myself and my wife, Steph, you know, grafted our asses off on the test day to get the engine swapped over and get me back out for a couple of sessions. The engine, it felt like I was riding a bicycle compared to the engine that I normally use. Nonetheless, you know, we were in a championship battle. I was 9 points behind 3rd place in the championship with it all to play for. I'd been leading races, been on the podium. And I still felt really confident. I knew you know, it was going to be a case of damage limitation with a slower engine, but just had to go for it really. Managed to qualify 5th, which wasn't terrible, although, you know, I would have been hoping for more. But I really struggled in race 1 and ended up battling with some guys that I shouldn't have really been battling with, or I don't feel like I should have been. I brought home a 6th place. Now, analysing my video back, I knew I could do better in races 2 and 3. You know, just I was going to have to be a bit more aggressive. But I sort of pulled my finger out in race 2 and managed to drag a 4th place out with some, you know, good overtaking manoeuvres on the brakes and things. And I actually learned quite a lot about well, not specifically how to brake late. I always feel like I brake late, but I found some lines which allowed me to brake much later than it seemed like everybody else. Race 3, this is the talking point of the year as far as I'm concerned. The best race I've ever had. But to cut a long story short, I started using the British Supersport Panther race fuel. I had enough for like a tank's worth or one race left. So I just thought, well, I may as well put it in and see if it'll make my bike any quicker, because I've been getting overtaken on the straights a fair bit in the previous 2 races. And it went, the arse dyno said that it was faster, unbelievably. Reasonable start. I think I settled into 3rd. On the first lap, I made 1 overtake into the foggy S's, pulled it down, no problems at all. And then the following lap, I planned on having a go into Melbourne Hairpin on Finley and, go for the lead. At this point, I did think it might be my last ever race. No exaggeration, I didn't think I had any sponsors or anything like that going forwards into 2023. So it was kind of, well, throw the kitchen sink at it and see what happens. Just a couple of corners later, going into the old hairpin, an opportunity presented itself, and I just thought, well, fuck it, sent it down the inside. Managed to make it stick, didn't fall off or anything. And from there, I think I led for about 7 laps. Now, I did think there was more pressure from behind than I realised, probably because it is because my line was compromised in the chicane off defending on the brakes, because I thought Finley was right behind me, which he wasn't, but in doing so, it did put him right behind me, if that makes sense. And a couple of times into Melbourne Hairpin, he was actually in front of me, but, I wasn't going down without a fight, so I was just, wherever he braked, I was going later, simple as. But yeah, he really, we had a good battle and he got past me eventually, which looking back, it's obviously no surprise. He's the champion from this year, and he rode really well all year, so, credit to him for that. But yeah, I just, once sort of had figured out a way to get past me, then I did struggle and I ended up coming home with a 4th place, which was a little bit disappointing, but after the race that I'd had, I really didn't care. It was the best race I've ever had. And certainly momentum that I want to carry forward into the 2023 season. I hope those of you that are regular viewers to the channel have enjoyed the vlogs that I've made this year. If you had, it'd be nice, to have a comment from you to say that you've enjoyed them. If you subscribe, if you race yourself, what I could do better on the channel. Bear in mind, I don't have a unlimited budget, obviously, but I also don't have unlimited time. I still go to work for a living, and do all the things normal people do, even though obviously I'm just a normal person, but you know what I'm saying. So I'd like to thank you, for being a regular viewer. Don't forget, tell your friends about it if you find it interesting, like my videos, share them, subscribe. But I'd just like to take this a few seconds really just to thank all my sponsors as well, because without them I really wouldn't be doing it. And I said in one of the roundups how going into that last race I didn't think I'd be racing in 2023. Turns out I will be, and I'll mention that in just a few seconds. But I'd just like to thank Alan, Caroline, Cameron, all the people at Exercise. They're my headline sponsor. They've been with me since the start, and I really appreciate it, and I couldn't do it without them. Don't forget my discount code Tommy556 for 10% off all the fitness equipment on the website. I'd also like to thank Craig at Metcalfe North East, Richie and all the lads down at Hartlepool Motorcycle Service Centre, Paul at NGK, Mortal, also another Paul at Dino Bike, Mick Shanley at MS Race Development, Hell Performance, Race Fasteners, and also Roy at pitbikeracing.co.uk. Now, for 2023, I'm going to be racing, as I've already kind of alluded to, but there'll be no British Supersport this time. Main reason being is that my bike, it's too old basically, and I don't have enough money to get the newer R6, which is what you need now in order to race. But it's not just that. It's not all about just having a newer bike. It's all the behind the scenes what goes into it as well. And again, it's not just the bike, it's all the upkeep of it, and actually having a bike what is similar power to the people that you're racing with and all the rest of it. And It's just a bridge too far, unfortunately. So I will be racing in the Pirelli Super Series 600 Championship again, although, you know, I go into 2023 with 33% or 50% more experience than I had when I started 2022, something like that. I can't do the quick maths. But yeah, so I'll be vlogging that as well. Now, obviously, I'm always on the lookout for sponsors. So if you know anyone, you know, who may be interested in helping out in any kind of way, I've got, you know, sponsorship proposals, all things like that. If you don't know anyone who's in that kind of position to help me out, then sharing this video or liking it or subscribing to the channel will ultimately help me in some way, and I really would appreciate it. I filmed some little bits down in the garage earlier as well, which says few things what I've changed for next year and what I'm going to be doing before the end of this year. But that'll be the end of the vlog. So thank you very much for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed it. I'll see you in 2023. Whilst I'm in the garage, I thought I'd show you a few extra little bits, turn into a mega vlog this, I think, or in terms of length at least. So I wanted to improve my bike a little bit for next year. So I've managed to get myself a kit ECU, so no more ignition barrel, which is going to, you know, reduce a lot of the complexity from underneath the seat. Now, another upgrade, my front brake discs, you might have spotted them when I was talking a little bit earlier. I've now got the fully floating discs, the Brembo HPKs, just the standard size, so no spacers required, just 310mm. So I'm hoping they're going to, you know, give me a bit more performance on the brakes. And then finally, I got myself some titanium brake pistons as well. So the idea is that titanium is less conductive of heat, but also they've got a special coating on the outside which reduces the stiction on the seals. And then finally, there's actually less contact area with the pad, because they've got them castellations, so that should reduce heat transfer into the piston, which will reduce heat transfer into the fluid, which should give me a even better braking performance, especially when it gets hotter. And considering how I managed to slow the bike down at Donington, if we can gain anything on the brakes, well, that would be fantastic, wouldn't it? Another little bit of information is my pit bike. Now, myself and another rider, which I'm not going to say who it is, not that it's like, it's not Carl Fogarty or anyone like that, but we're going to be racing this in the Moped Mayhem at Teesside. This is my bike now, but I'm going to be racing it under the pitbikeRacing.co.uk banner in the pit bike class, obviously. This on the 30th of December. Now, I've done this a couple of times. We tried last year, but a couple of my two teammates crashed a bit too much and ruined the bike. One of them ripping the brake line out of it, so front brake line that is. Fingers crossed it goes a little bit better this year, so if you're there, pop over and say hello. I might vlog it, I might not, I don't know, we'll see what happens.